Okay, very good. Well, good morning, everybody, fellow committee members, commissioners, staff, and participants. I hope everyone's enjoying the summer as it winds down. It's also the final road charge technical advisory committee meeting of 2025. Today we have 2 action items and 2 informational items on the agenda. Before I get started, I will go over the items briefly on today's agenda. First up, we will have the proposed 26 road charge technical advisory committee scheduled for adoption. Then we'll move on to the next action item, where CTC staff will present updates to the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee operating procedures for adoption. Following the 2 action items, we move on to the following informational items. First, Caltrans will provide an update on the Senate Bill 339 Road Charge Revenue Collection Pilot. Lauren Prohoda from Caltrans last provided an informational update at the April 15th Road Charge TAC Committee meeting earlier this year. Following Caltrans' presentation, Scott Boardman from the Oregon Department of Transportation will present an overview of the Oregon Department of Transportation's road use charge program, including a status update and lessons they have learned from their work. Before we begin, we have some brief instructions regarding the webinar and public comment for those joining us virtually. Justin will provide these instructions. Go ahead, Justin.
Thank you, Chair. I will first call the roll and then jump into those webinar logistics. Asha Agarwal.
Present.
Lisa Bartlett.
Here.
Terry Benzel.
Here.
Vice Chair Steve Finnegan. Jim Medaffer. Pam O'Connor. Robert Poitras.
Here.
Misty Rickwall.
Here.
Eric Sauer.
Present.
Stacy Atkins Salazar. Lee Tien.
Here.
Assemblymember Lori Wilson. Chair Jay Bradshaw.
Here.
All right, Chair, we have quorum.
Very good. Thank you, Justin.
I will now jump into.
Go ahead.
Oh, apologies. I will now jump into the quickly the webinar logistics for the meeting.
Perfect.
All right, welcome everyone to the September 2025 Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee meeting. The California Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee was established in 2014 by Senate Bill 1077 to study alternatives to the gas tax, gather public comment, and make recommendations to the California State Transportation Agency regarding the design of a road charge pilot program. Today's meeting agenda can be found on our website at www.catc.ca.gov. American Sign Language translation is being provided for this meeting. You should see the interpreters on your screen. Members, should you have any questions or comments during the meeting, please let us know by raising your hand or otherwise get our attention on camera and wait for the chair to call on you. You can also send inquiries and comments through the questions tab that can be read to presenters and the audience on your behalf. Please mute your microphone except when you intend to speak to minimize outside noise and feedback. The chair will do their best to call on each of you in turn. We hope that you will turn on your camera while speaking if you have one. Because we do not have a quorum present in person, every vote will need to be a roll call vote. Presenters, if you're on the agenda to make a presentation, please do your best to be succinct. Please remember to speak at a steady pace to allow our interpreting service adequate time for accurate translation. We hope that you will turn on your camera during your presentation if you have one. Members of the public, we welcome comments from the public as a part of each item at this meeting. You should see the webinar control panel, likely located on the bottom of your screen. There you'll find the raise hand and Q&A buttons. We encourage you to use the raise hand feature as soon as we reach the item to give the system time to acknowledge you. Committee staff will let you know when it's your turn to make your comment. Alternately, you may use the Q&A button to submit your comment. Committee staff will read that comment on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These should not be shared with other participants, as this can create confusion for staff when making comments. Do your best to be concise and speak at a steady pace to allow our translating services adequate time for accurate translation. Please make sure that your comments add new information. If you agree with the comments of a previous speaker, simply make that statement. We ask that you make your point in 2 minutes or less. If for some reason we have many speakers on any single topic, we reserve the right to limit comments to 1 minute if needed. Thank you all for joining us today. We know some of your time is valuable. We know your time is valuable, and we appreciate you sharing some of it with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. That'll bring us to agenda item number 3. CTC Commission Chief Deputy Director, Paul Gozeski, will give us an update from the commission. Paul?
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. It's good to see everyone today. I hope everyone had a nice summer. I'm filling in today for our Executive Director, Tanisha Taylor, who's currently out on medical leave. I wanted to start by introducing our newest staff member here at the Commission, Lala Tijo. Lala recently joined the planning team here, and she'll be working on the needs assessment and the road charge programs with Francis Diaz Sanchez. So welcome, Lala. I also wanted to make you all aware that Emily Warren has been appointed by the governor as the Deputy Secretary of Innovative Mobility Solutions at the California State Transportation Agency. And Emily will be overseeing road usage charge as part of her portfolio there. And we look forward to her joining us at our next meeting. And lastly, I wanted just to recognize Francis Diaz Sanchez, Lala Tijo, Sasha Linka, Justin Hall, and Laura Pennybaker for their work in preparing this meeting for you all today. And that concludes my remarks. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Are there any comments from committee members? Any from the public? All right. Seeing none, that'll bring us to number 4 on the agenda, approval of minutes for April 18th, 2025 TAC meeting and review of action items. The minutes from the April 18th meeting have been provided for your review and approval. Francis, before we approve these, please remind us if we had any action items from the last meeting specifically we need to vote on. I guess we had none actually in looking at my notes.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. There were no action items from the last meeting.
Okay. Are there any comments or corrections, committee members? Questions from the public on the minutes? Okay,
Not seeing any request for public comment.
okay, thank you, Douglas. I would entertain a motion for approval, and this will also have to be a roll call vote.
Bartlett, motion to approve?
Here is second.
Second.
Okay. We'll call the vote. All in favor? Aye.
Chair,
How-
I think
Go
we
ahead.
need a roll call.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Call the roll, please. I apologize.
yes, I will call the roll. And I wanted to confirm that Sauer was the second.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I will now call the roll. Asha Agarwal,
Aye.
Lisa Bartlett,
Yes.
Terry Benzel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Finnegan, Jim Madaffer, Pam O'Connor, Robert Poitras,
Aye.
Misty Rickwell,
Aye.
Eric Sauer,
Aye.
Stacy Atkins Salazar, Lee Tien.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. That'll bring us to item number 5, member reports, information item. We will now hear from committee members. Members, are there any road charge related reports you'd like to share? Please raise your hand and I can call on you if you do. Okay, not seeing any. That'll bring us to agenda item number 6, which is adoption of the 2026 meeting dates. Francis from CTC will present the proposed road charge technical advisory committee meeting dates. Go ahead, Francis.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. So tab 6 is the adoption of the 2026 meeting dates. The California Transportation Commission staff recommends that the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee approve the proposed 2026 Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee meeting dates. The proposed committee dates for 2026 are Friday, February 27th, 2026, Friday, April 17th, 2026, Friday, July 24th, 2026, and Friday, September 18th, 2026. If changes or additional meetings are needed, staff will work with the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee Chair and Vice Chair to schedule them and will inform the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee members. Commission staff will coordinate with the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee and notify the public before each meeting regarding whether the meetings will be held in person, virtually, or a combination of the two. With that, I conclude tab 6 and are happy to answer any questions or if there are any concerns about the proposed meeting dates for 2026.
Fellow committee members, any questions or comments or concerns for Francis? Seeing none. Douglas, any public comment?
Not seeing any request for public comment.
I would entertain a motion for approval of the proposed dates.
This is Misty. I will make the motion.
Bartlett,
I'll second.
Thank you. Justin, if you could take the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Will do. Asha Agarwal,
Yes.
Lisa Bartlett,
Yes.
Terry Benzel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Finnegan, Jim Madaffer, Pam O'Connor, Robert Poitras,
Aye.
Misty Rickwall,
Aye.
Eric Sauer,
Aye.
Stacy Atkins Salazar, Lee Tien.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you, Justin. That brings us to number 7 on the agenda, adoption of updates to operating procedures. And we'll call again on Francis to go over the proposed updates to the operating procedures. Go ahead, Francis.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. Committee members, tab 7 is an action item. Commission staff identified the need to update the operating procedures for the Road Charge Technical Advisory Committee to reflect current human resources and administrative requirements for committee members. These updates are intended to ensure compliance with statutory requirements. As part of these updates, Commission staff drafted additions to reflect the statutory requirements for committee members to complete necessary documentation for compensation and employment eligibility, including but not limited to the W-4, STD 686 form, and I-9 verification process. In addition, committee members are required to file a statement of economic interest, Form 700, and complete mandatory trainings. These updates to the operating procedures will ensure that committee members meet all current legal, ethical, and administrative requirements associated with their service. You can see the highlighted updates in the attachment for tab 7 to the operating procedures. With that, I conclude my remarks on this item and happy to answer any questions committee members may have here.
Thank you, Francis. Committee members, any questions for Francis on the procedures?
This is Misty. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where do we file these documents?
You can send the documents to Douglas Remedios to be filed, Misty.
Thank you.
You're
Commissioner
welcome.
Benzel, Committee Member Benzel, go ahead.
Yes, thank you very much. I think, have I already filed these documents? I know I filed the tax forms. And do we only file them once as we become members, or what's the process there?
Hi, Terry. Thank you for your question. So these forms are required to be filed annually, and staff will work with you in ensuring that the documentation is received, and we will follow up with you to see if you have filed them already.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah,
You-
just to
oh,
clarify that point, the Form 700 is required annually. The other forms, the I-9 are not required annually. That's just one time.
Right, right, and not to abuse the chair, but Paul, I was gonna call on you anyway, like you say, that's the annual one, but also to do my 700, there's a process of filing that, right? It's not necessarily through Doug, at least not the way I've been doing it,
Commissioner,
Yeah, so
Paul, I can take that. Commissioner, I can let you know that the policy for commissioners is slightly different for committee members
Okay.
and some staff.
Very good, got it then. Let me not muck it up from the chair. Thanks, Doug. Bail me out again. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Misty.
Thank you. I'm not a state employee, so I'm not familiar with these processes at all. And I wonder if there could be a written process or direct me to a written process that I can refer to for all of these documents. I know it was a difficulty for me to meet with someone to fill out all the paperwork because I live 2.5 hours away from from the office of Caltrans office where they came from to meet me for filling them out, and she wasn't really sure what I was filling them out for. It was like I was filling out state employee paperwork as if I was an employee of the state, but I'm an employee of the tribe. And so then I was thinking, well, now I'm a dual employee, and it just seemed it was murky, and I'm not very clear. And so I'm wondering if there can be a written process for that, just for some of us who aren't familiar with it at all. Thank you.
Hi, Missy. Yeah, I think absolutely, to just make it easier for members, and it's a good process to have, detailing how it should be done, who to work with. So we can work on doing that. And I think too, on Caltrans HR front, we're enforcing something that should have been enforced. So I can't speak on behalf of Caltrans HR. I'll just say we will make the process clearer for members on how the form should be submitted, who, what needs to be done, et cetera.
Yes,
Yeah, we can absolutely work on that. This was a new effort, but now that you've completed the I-9, you do not have to do that again. And that was what required the in-person meeting with Caltrans. For the Form 700, which is what you'll be doing annually, it does not require you to, meet with Caltrans in person to do that one. So, but we'll work on the process for new members as they come on board and complete it, so it goes more smoothly.
Thank you. And will that form be sent to me?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. And they just in case I was not clear, the person from Caltrans who met with me, and I believe she was from HR, was very nice and helpful, but she also wasn't really clear what it was for, because she's not familiar with this committee, I think is all, or this commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rick Walt.
And I will just say, this is Lee Tian. I have not filled out any form. I don't understand this process at all. And I have been on the tax since the beginning. So I am happy to fill out whatever needs to be filled out. But this is like the first time I've encountered it in many years. So just let me know what I have to do. But I do hope I don't have to go up to Sacramento to do something in person. Thank you.
Yeah, so like Francis mentioned, this is something that we initiated. You should have been contacted to do this. If not, Francis will reach out to you to get that going. And the challenge was, in order to complete the I-9, there needs to be an in-person verification of your identification. So we're coordinating with the Caltrans district offices. We understand some members like Misty live in remote areas. They've been great in traveling to TAC members to do the paperwork with them at a place that's convenient for them. You do not have to come to Sacramento in order to do it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, members. Any further questions? Okay. Seeing no other hands, any public comments? Douglas?
Not seeing any requests for public comment on this item.
All right, great. So I would make the motion to, or I can't make the motion, but I would entertain a motion to approve. I think, yeah.
Bartlett, motion to approve.
Thank you. Member Bartlett. Do I hear a second?
A second from Asha.
I'm sorry, broke up a little bit there. Who made the second?
Asha, second.
Thank you, Asha. Justin, can you do a roll, please?
Will do, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Asha Agarwal,
Yes.
Lisa Bartlett,
Yes.
Terry Benzel,
Yes.
Vice Chair Steve Finnegan, Jim Madaffer, Pam O'Connor, Robert Poitras,
Aye.
Misty Rickwalt,
Aye.
Eric Sauer,
Aye.
Stacy Atkins Salazar,
Yes.
Lee Tien,
Yes.
Chair Jay Bradshaw.
Aye.
Chair, the motion is approved.
Thank you, everybody. We're moving ahead of schedule here, so we're going to keep moving to agenda item number 8, which is update on Senate Bill 339 road charge revenue collection pilot. This is an information item. I'm going to call on Lauren Prohoda, who's our road charge program manager at Caltrans. She'll give us a brief update on the Senate Bill 339 revenue collection pilot program. Go ahead, Lauren.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, TAC members. As always, a pleasure to be with you. First off, I did just want to touch on what Paul mentioned regarding the appointment of Emily Warren. For those of you who have been around the TAC for a while, you may recall that she was actually on the TAC back in the day. So we are excited to have her once again involved in the state's research effort. In terms of updates on 339, we don't have too much detail to provide to you today. We are really up to our elbows in data analysis and thinking through the lessons learned and how best to share those with you guys and with the legislature. But we are definitely on track to meet all the statutory deadlines in SB 339. One other thing that I did want to make you aware of, if you are not already, is some of the efforts by the Assembly Transportation Committee that have been happening this year and will be going into the fall. Chair Wilson is envisioning a series of town hall meetings around the state to kind of discuss the issues around transportation funding, not necessarily solutions, but kind of inviting the public in to learn about where transportation funding is in our state and what our funding supports in terms of regional projects and things like that. She did have the first one this July in Fresno. I believe Supervisor Poitras was there, which is great. So these will be taking place around the state. They're still kind of pinning down the schedule, but there's going to be 6 or 7 meetings. They should be available online as well. So if you are interested in either attending or watching those, I would recommend, keeping tabs on the Assembly Transportation Committee site or reaching out to staff for more details as those are pinned down, but they will definitely be all over the state. The other thing is there will be an informational hearing of the legislature on October 20th. This is the third of the informational hearings that Chair Wilson has had so far this year. Kind of trying to share just and educate members of the legislature on where the state is. The first one was the spring, talking specifically about the funding issue and where revenues are going in the state. Last month, they had a second one that looked at what other states are doing to address the funding issues that they are also facing. It was a great presentation by many couple of other states that have implemented road use charges, as well as information on other choices that states have made. So the next one will be October 20th. The agenda is not yet up. And again, I'd monitor the Assembly Transportation Committee website for that. But that's going to be another great opportunity for the legislature just to be learning and ask questions they may have and start to wrap their minds around this issue. So with that, those are the kind of things I wanted to make sure that you guys were updated on. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lauren. Are there any questions from TAC members or comments for Lauren? Okay, seeing no hands. Douglas, any public comments?
Not seeing any requests for public comment on this item, Chair.
All right, thank you, Douglas. Thanks again, Lauren. As always, very concise but informative report. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That'll bring us to agenda item number 9, overview of the Oregon Department of Transportation Usage Charge Program. I will call on Scott Boardman. We're honored to have you with us today, who's the Innovative Programs Policy Advisor for the Oregon Department of Transportation and overseeing the Oregon Road Usage Charge Program. Welcome, and go ahead, Scott.
Good morning. Happy to be here. For the record, Scott Boardman. I serve as the Innovative Programs Policy Advisor with the Oregon Department of Transportation. In that role, I work largely on policy development as it relates to our road usage charge program, which we refer to as Origo. So happy to provide an overview of that today. Next slide, please. So whenever I'm talking about our road usage charge program, I always like to kind of set the stage first, just in terms of our state highway fund and some of the structural funding challenges that we are experiencing. And many of these are not necessarily unique to Oregon. There are many other states that are experiencing similar challenges. One of them being the decline of fuels tax revenue as vehicles become increasingly efficient and pay less in fuels tax, which is the source of revenue that has been, the workhorse for our transportation system for many years now. Within Oregon, we also have a reliance on just a small number of revenue sources, and really they aren't particularly inflation resistant. Unlike payroll taxes, other types of taxes that tend to go up as pay goes up, our taxes within the transportation sector are static and don't increase with inflation. We also have a rigid statutory structure. Our last large transportation package was passed in 2017, and less than 2% of those additional taxes and fees are actually directed toward highway maintenance and operations. Most of those went towards specific projects. And then, as many other states are dealing with right now, we are grappling with record inflation, equipment costs, labor costs, paint costs, all the things that go into the actual operations and maintenance of the system are more expensive, while our revenues as it relates to fuels tax are trending downward. And so we are faced with these structural challenges that we are trying to address through something like a road usage charge. So that's kind of setting the stage for where we stand. And if we can go to the next slide. So just a couple other elements as it relates to your neighbor to the north in Oregon. There are certain things that we have that other states don't, and certain things that many other states have that we do not. And so The first one is cost responsibility, and that is built into our Constitution in the sense that light and heavy duty vehicles need to pay in proportion to the cost that they impose on the system. And so we also have for our heavy duty vehicles, those are 26,000 pounds and over, a weight mile tax. So they are paying based on their weight as well as how many miles they drive in the state. So those are two things that are pretty unique to Oregon. But other ones that we don't have that many other states do, things like indexing of the fuels tax, tolling on state highways, sales tax. The state of Oregon does not have a general sales tax. That's something that, you know, in many other states, local governments can kind of piggyback onto that to raise money for their local systems as well. And then typically we do not use general fund or other non-user fee funds within our transportation system. So again, just, you know, some context in terms of how our program came to be and the kind of the environment within which we operate. Next slide. So getting into this idea of road usage charging and paying by the mile. This is something that the state of Oregon has been looking at for over 20 years now. And so back in 2001, the Oregon legislature created what is known as the Road User Fee Task Force, or what we lovingly call Rough Tough. And they were charged with exploring alternatives to the state gas tax, basically recognizing that as vehicles became more efficient, the sustainability of the fuel tax as the major workhorse within the transportation revenue system was going to fade over time. And so they were guided by 8 overarching criteria, and 2 of those, just, you know, for context, include such things as users pay and revenue sufficiency. They considered 28 funding ideas. Many of these were specific excise taxes, things like a tire tax, things like a battery tax. Those weren't found to be particularly viable in terms of raising enough revenue. There are also concerns there that, you know, if someone was looking to, or if someone needed new tires, they might end up pushing that purchase off because of the additional tax on them and then driving on tires that maybe shouldn't be on the road. And so ultimately, as they looked at all these criteria and the different funding ideas, it was road usage charging that was identified as the preferred alternative that really met these criteria in the best way. And so from there, the state conducted pilots in both 2006 and 2007, as well as 2012 and 2013. So 2 successful pilots were under our belt, which led to the creation of our program. Next slide, please. So our program, which is known as Origo, often a term that gets called very different things, Origo, Orego, it is pronounced Origo. So we do have an operational voluntary program, and we were the first live program in the nation when it was created in July of 2015. And so as it works now, drivers of vehicles that are rated at 20 mpg or better can enroll in the program. The per mile rate is set at 5% of the fuel tax in law. So at this moment, the per gallon fuel tax in Oregon is 40 cents, which means the per mile rate at 5% of that works out to be 2 cents per mile. Participants pay the 2 cents per mile. Any vehicle that is not a full EV, so if they are using fuel, they receive a credit for the fuel tax paid. And then within Oregon, we have this tiered registration structure. So every vehicle pays a base registration, but then each tier then pays an additional registration, a supplemental registration fee based on the vehicle's efficiency. And so the 2 highest tiers that we have in the state are at 40 plus mpg, as well as the full battery electric vehicles. And so for those vehicles, if they join the program, they can have their supplemental registration fees waived by enrolling at the time of registration and remaining in the program for the duration of that registration period. So when they enroll, the volunteers choose among what we refer to as account managers. These are private business partners that we partner with to provide the actual RUC services. And so, you know, they have participants have choice in terms of how their mileage is reported, how frequently they need to report their mileage, you know, and the business partner that they have this relationship with in terms of the services being provided. And so GPS is not required. though it is an option currently. And that's something that is, particularly appealing to those who maybe drive out of state quite a bit because they do not owe for any of the miles that they drive out of state if they have the GPS mileage reporting option. And privacy is protected. The enabling legislation that created this program had very strong privacy protections built in terms of user data and security. Next slide, please. So just to provide some lessons learned on our journey, just because we recently actually, hit our 10-year anniversary in terms of having a live program. We, compared to other states, Virginia and Utah both have live programs. Ours, even though it has been in operation the longest, we still have very modest enrollment numbers at this time. Utah and Virginia both have more active participants than we do, though we have had, a number of participants over the course of those 10 years. And so just a few lessons that we've learned along the way that might prove helpful to other states. An advisory group can be particularly valuable in providing input and direction during both the pilot and then program development phases. For us, especially, as the first live program in the nation, starting small and building incrementally has been very helpful in the sense that, we didn't have to flip a light switch and put all of our, 3.5 million vehicles on this program at once. Having, a smaller program and a more intimate program to start has allowed us to really, work with and talk to our participants, get feedback that's been valuable in terms of shaping, some of the program moving forward. Public education, public outreach is extremely important. The gas tax has been, something that has been in place for over 100 years. It's one of those things that's in the background. People don't necessarily know that they're paying gas tax. They don't necessarily know how much gas tax they're paying when they go to fill up at the pump. This is something that's much more transparent and visible. And so working with, the public to make sure they understand why we're engaging in this, why we are going down this path, why it's necessary in terms of raising revenue for our transportation system. Leveraging the private sector for technology, data security, privacy protection. This is something that relates to our use of account managers. That's where we kind of have this open architecture system where we invite the private sector to come in, plug into that open architecture system, and then offer things that the private sector is better equipped to offer than we are as a state entity. So bringing things like innovation and a little more, flexibility, agility to that process has been really helpful for us. And then obviously monitoring evolving technology for challenges and opportunities. We've been at this for over 20 years in terms of looking into the idea of road usage charging, and over 10 now in terms of an active program. And so while we've largely relied on, through the history of the program so far, onboard devices that plug into the OBD port of a vehicle, that's something that we don't envision in a more expanded program, given that some people don't know where their OBD2 port is located. The plug-in device is easily removable, and vehicles, as they become more technologically advanced, some of them don't really have accessible OBD2 ports anymore. So moving instead to things like in-vehicle telematics provides an opportunity to really leverage these evolving technologies and make this a more streamlined and automated process for our participants. Next slide. Really wanted to hone in here on the idea of outreach and education in the sense that we've been doing this for a while, and getting the public on board can be a challenging task, but one that is clearly necessary to get public buy-in. And so you see some kind of 3 milestones here. We had done a lot more public outreach and education prior to the pandemic. Since then, it had kind of quieted down, but a lot of that initial outreach, in the early stages before the program truly launched, people didn't understand it, or they didn't trust the government to quote unquote be in their vehicle. But as we worked with them to explain how the program works and where it was going, they start to get it. They understand that this is something that is fair in the sense that it's really tying back to the user pays principle as opposed to specifically the efficiency of any given vehicle. And then also explaining to them how their privacy is protected, how their data is secured, really results in those who have participated in the program and gotten to understand how the system works become much more comfortable with the idea and much more understanding of why we are going about this. Next slide, please. So we are in Oregon currently underway in a special legislative session. This was called at the end of August. Admittedly, there have been a few speed bumps along the way. We had anticipated that this would be done at this point, but there have been some extenuating circumstances, in which case we are still underway in this special session. But this is to address ODOT's budget gap and structural funding challenges. This piece of legislation has various sources of revenue increases, from the gas tax to vehicle registration. We have a payroll tax in Oregon that goes towards transit providers across the state. And within this piece of legislation are provisions related to a mandatory RUC program for certain vehicles that are phased in over time. Next slide. And so what you see here is the proposed phase-in of that implementation. And so it would start with passenger vehicles, so those that are 10,000 pounds and less, with EVs that are renewing their registration, so those that are basically already in the system with Oregon DMV, in July of 2027. 6 months later, we would then bring in new EVs. So this is really where those 6 additional months would be for the state to continue working with dealerships, because enrolling the new vehicles at the point of sale is going to be a bit more complicated than it will be for the vehicles that are already in the system with DMV. And then from there, we would be bringing in the new and renewal hybrids, and that includes both plug-in and what we would consider the more traditional hybrid vehicles in July of 2028. And so what you see here is certainly those highly efficient vehicles in the form of EVs and hybrids. We do anticipate, at least from ODOT's perspective, I can't speak to legislative intent in future sessions, but we would anticipate that in the future, additional highly efficient internal combustion engine vehicles would also be brought into the program. But this is kind of what we're viewing currently as a first step. And so for those who are subject to the mandate, but perhaps do not actually want to report by the mile, they can elect to pay a flat fee of $340 in lieu of the RUC, and that's on an annual basis. And so those vehicles that are paying RUC, again, similar to how the existing program works now, they do not have to pay the supplemental registration fees, so the registration fees that are based on vehicle efficiency. And those that do use fuel, so those hybrid vehicles and the plug-in hybrid vehicles, do receive a non-refundable fuel tax credit for the fuel consumed. So that is kind of the quick and dirty version of what the mandatory component would entail. At this point, we are expecting a vote to occur at the end of this month. So hopefully, if all goes according to plan at this point, by September 29th, we might have a mandatory RUC on the books for beginning in July of 2027. So, and I believe that's my last slide. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman. That was a very good presentation, and we appreciate it. Are there any comments or questions from committee members? Member Rickwalt, go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, was there tribal consultation?
There has been tribal consultation, yes. Though not as much in recent times. More tribal consultation in recent times has focused on, we did have a tolling program that was being stood up, and that was of more of greater interest to my knowledge. That's something that I don't have a ton of context to elaborate on now, but I can tell you that there has been tribal consultation, yes.
Great. Go ahead, Member Tien.
Oh, isn't Terry first?
Well, I thought I had him right, but either way, we can go with
Go, Terry.
Member
All right,
Benzel.
thank you.
Go ahead.
Terry
Uh,
Benzel, University of Southern California. My sister and her family are longtime Oregonians with a family of 4 EVs and a biofuel truck. So good targets for us. But my question really is about privacy, and maybe Lee and I often echo each other on these questions. So you did say early on that privacy was very important. You did mention using a third party, and of course, that's where I have concerns. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the privacy?
Yeah, so the enabling legislation has strong privacy protections built in. And so in terms of those what we refer to as account managers, those private business partners, they are held to certain standards in terms of how any participant data is treated and handled. ODOT itself does not receive location data. We only receive data as it relates to the actual number of miles driven. So for any of those who are choosing to use the GPS enabled option, we don't receive any of that data. That is just used on a trip basis to determine, are they in Oregon or not? And if not, then those miles are not being charged for. And if they are being charged for. And so, basically there are certain provisions that only certain entities can access the data. That includes, within the account managers themselves, certain banking institutions for the purposes of paying for the charges owed. But ultimately, it's anyone's individual data 30 days after account settlement. So 30 days after I pay my bill, or if we have, a conflict resolution, that data is destroyed. And so we, go to great lengths to ensure that that data is being protected, both in terms of how it's being stored by the private partners for a period of time, and then also at one point it is destroyed. And so again, we as a state agency do not receive any of the location data. We effectively just receive metered use to understand, this is how many miles were driven, this is what would be owed, so that way we can reconcile the charges that are owed. But I can also provide additional context and information about what those privacy protections are.
Thank you. I would appreciate it if we could see what those protections or standards are. And I mean, Lauren and I did some work earlier on, whether there should be penetration tests or what kinds of security analysis of those account managers before they go live. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Tien.
Yeah, so let me, as I expected, Terry broached the topic. I'm going to follow up a little bit on it. One of the things that's really sort of changed over the many years that we've been looking at this subject, because I remember presentations from ODOT, probably like within the first couple of years that I was on this committee, and it feels like the ODOT experience has been very much has really improved on its understanding, appreciation, and sort of efforts around privacy, as we all have learned how important it is in evaluating road charge. The thing that is different today, I think, than it was when we started was, I know I came into this area very concerned about government possession of location data, and not really as concerned about private possession of location data. But these days, in the last 10 years, it's become very, very clear that the monetization of location data within the sort of driving industrial complex your mention of telematics reminded me of this, because there are many outstanding lawsuits right now about how various apps and various other kinds of applications are harvesting location data, and we've seen how the car companies put SDK developer toolkits into things that end up tracking people via apps. So while it is great that you have these privacy rules and that there is, as we have like non-GPS solutions on location data, I guess if we were working off of the, say, 2012 threat model, we would not really be in the right place for the 2025 threat model with respect to location data. And so while I'm glad that the agency itself doesn't have the data, and certainly agree that more work on sort of looking at security is always going to be important. What I think I'm really curious about is the ability of ODOT to actually audit compliance or understand what the commercial account manager companies, those third-party entities, are doing in terms of data sharing or allowing access via, through the insurance market, or even sharing that data with toll. I've been dealing with a bill on toll roads this session in California, and it was impossible to find out from the toll authorities what they were doing with Californians' driving data. They told us eventually they were shipping like license plate data to other hubs in other states, but they were unable to actually say, and are they selling that license plate data? And it was not even clear what the governance structure on that would be. So like my first sort of general point is a concern about the performance of commercial account managers and whether there are any, because I'm very interested in what we in California can learn about how to do compliance and enforcement on basically on data privacy going forward, and not just like we don't have it, but we don't know what Visa is doing it with, or or a bank or whatever, because there are a lot of there's a lot of actors out there who have incentives. And then the other sort of related question is, because I do think the threat is not just a commercial one. I look at your slide about outreach and education, and it's great that folks in 2020 were more comfortable with everything, and that the program seemed to be like treating people well in terms of data. But I'll be honest, this 2025, the last, as a result of the last election and what the current administration in DC is doing, people's data is being just like ripped out of all sorts of both private and public sector areas for either it's punishing folks who are seeking reproductive health, crossing state lines for various kinds of reasons, also immigration. And this is, at least in California and Oregon, these are highly controversial things that we're doing a lot to try to prevent. So I guess my basic question is, I feel like the threat model on privacy is different than it was. And I'm curious whether you are able to sort of respond to that within the confines of the program, or to be able to give people additional assurances who are worried about flocks reading, ALPR data because someone went and got an abortion, how data is being protected at that kind of level within your program, because I think we would be trying to do the same thing in California. So thank you.
Yeah. So, to some of the items you mentioned, we certainly have the right and the ability to audit our account managers to ensure that they are in compliance with our requirements as they relate to data privacy, data security. It's something that hasn't been a huge issue or, a topic of particular salience through this portion of our program's history, given that it's still relatively small on a voluntary basis. And so, our relationship with the account managers is quite good. They are, they're great to work with in terms of ensuring compliance. the collaboration is certainly there. To the idea of you brought up of selling data for other purposes, by default, our account managers, in terms of our program requirements, they cannot monetize participants' data unless the participants give them permission to. And so that's something that, within that kind of participant and private business relationship, if I am seeking, additional value-added services through my account manager as it relate to, kind of mobility services or transportation offerings, that's something that, perhaps I would agree to giving up a little more data for something in return. That's up to them largely, but by default, the account managers cannot use that data for additional monetization purposes. It has to be something that the participant would give them the ability to do so. And then I would simply add that as we continue to expand this program, for those who continue to have any privacy concerns, we do offer odometer reading as a mileage reporting option. So basically, you just take a picture of your odometer every 3 months or so, and so that basically removes any component as it relates to GPS or location data, because it's non-existent in that sense. So every 3 months, you take a photo of your odometer, you subtract out the previous reading, you multiply that by the ruck rate, and there's the amount owed. So in that case, the account manager doesn't know where you went. They just know that you drove X number of miles in that time frame. So for those who continue to be concerned about privacy beyond the protections built in related to the GPS offerings or other mileage reporting offerings, it would be for them, certainly I think the odometer option would offer really the safest bet, in the sense that it's the lowest tech and doesn't include any of that information.
Thank you, Mr. Boardman. First up, Member Bartlett, and then Member Rickbold.
And thank you, Mr. Chair. So I have a question actually for Scott relative to the Oregon program. The more manual the process for capturing the miles traveled, have you delineated what the cost from an admin fee perspective would be? GPS versus the literally recording your odometer reading and then having it get processed. Because right now we've got in California, we've got a 1% pay at the pump admin fee. We know that going to a road usage charge, the admin fee overall is going to be higher. But then if you're strictly looking at an odometer, and if a lot of people go to that approach with the manual odometer reading, what is the differential in the admin fee on your side versus somebody that's got the automated approach through technology?
Yeah, so certainly over the course of the program so far, the predominant method for reporting mileage has been that plug-in device. And those things are expensive in the sense that they are, aftermarket hardware devices that require a cellular connection. So for all the woes of the gas tax, it's a great tax from an administrative perspective because it's so cheap to administer. RUC is certainly a bit more. We have found that as we move away from the plug-in devices and to the manual reporting or to the odometer or to the telematics options, those are both much, much cheaper. Some of it depends on, for us, I can kind of give you orders of magnitude. I can't give you the specifics because some of that's privileged information from our account managers in terms of how much it costs them to do that. But you can basically categorize it. The most expensive would be the plug-in device. The next most expensive would be telematics with GPS, though it then depends on how often the GPS component is being reported. So if you're pinging every 5 seconds, that's a lot of data. If you're pinging every, minute, 2 minutes, the less you ping on the GPS side of things, the cheaper it becomes because there's less data being transferred. Telematics without GPS tends to be the next cheapest option. And then the odometer reads are quite inexpensive. Those are done via, at least in our program, for the account managers, either through an app that the account manager has developed and that the person can download onto their phone, just go into the app, click a button to report your mileage, take a picture, and there it goes. Another one uses a web portal. So those are quite inexpensive and cost effective, since they've already, there's some development costs on the front end of setting those up. But then once, we get scale, that continues to drive down, the marginal costs of each one. But odometer, very inexpensive. Even the telematics without GPS, from an administrative perspective, from the agency side, is quite reasonable as well. So we anticipate, again, as we hope to get this expanded mandatory program, and as we reach economies of scale, those costs continue to come down. But relative to the gas tax, it's certainly a bit more expensive, considering, that's fuels taxes collected at the rack, and it's really just, a relative, at least in Oregon, a relatively smaller number of payers compared to an individual transaction for every driver in the state.
Right. And yeah, when you consider the population and vehicles on the road in Oregon versus California,
Yeah.
with 40 million vehicles, it's a different scenario.
Definitely.
And then relative to, I know we've discussed the privacy issue, and I think that our road charge group, it was very wise to look at the transportation corridor agencies, or the toll roads. So the toll road agency has the most toll roads in California, and they have account managers that capture the data for billing purposes. Very inexpensive, very efficient. They scrub the data on a routine basis, and they do not use the data for to send out to other third parties for advertising and that sort of thing. There's never been a breach that I know of with regard to the personally identifiable information, and they handle multi-millions of transactions on an annualized basis. So they really got the program kind of down pat for literally for decades, and have done a really good job there. So with our potential road usage charge for California, utilizing a toll road agency that already has this whole program in place for capturing information and billing, I think is really a wise thing, and it protects the privacy of the users as well. So I think we've got some good things in place that can hopefully move forward as we start to roll this out on a real-time basis. Thank you. Those are my questions and comments.
Thank you, Member Bartlett. Member Rickwalt.
Hello again. I had a question about the opt-out fee of $340. I was wondering if if they opt out, do they still have to pay the supplemental registration fees?
They do not. So once it's a little labyrinthian in terms of how we get to this point, but basically once a vehicle is subject to the RUC mandate as proposed in that legislation, the enhanced, what we refer to as enhanced registration fees, those supplemental registration fees, no longer apply. So once they're in the RUC program, they would either be paying by the mile or paying that opt-out fee, but not the additional supplemental, not the additional registration component.
Okay, and then I had another question about the possibility. I know that you guys have the GPS as an option right now for the tracking. Could that become mandatory in the future without a vote?
As it stands, the enabling legislation does not allow for, we have to provide non-GPS mileage reporting options. And so legally, that can't be done without any changes to legislation. The legislature would have to change that. But even from the agency's perspective, that's not something that I think we would be seeking to do at this moment. We envision the need for this odometer capture method when we get to an expanded program, rather than mandating the use of GPS. So that's built into the legislation, that we have to offer non-GPS options in terms of reporting mileage.
Thank you. I think people are hesitant already to be tracked, and when a program is rolled out and they have it be optional at the beginning, it's always in the back of people's minds that it could potentially change in the future and become mandatory. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Rickwell. Are there any further questions or comments from members? Seeing none, any public comments or questions, Douglas?
Not seeing any requests from the public to make comment on this item, Chair.
Very good. At the risk of abusing the chair a little bit, I have a request. First off, Mr. Boardman, thank you so much for your presentation and your thorough answers to the questions. Francis, would it be possible, because Scott did mention a few things, there's further information may be available for members that are interested. Would you be able to follow up issues around privacy, security, audits, accountability? Not putting you on the spot, Mr. Boardman, but we heard you report on a little of that. You may have some further helpful information on how those systems were set up and would be very helpful. And if you're okay with it, I'd like, if Francis is okay with it, to follow up with you on any of that for
Yeah,
members.
happy to provide additional context around those items.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So since there's no public comment or questions, we'll move on. Francis, right back to you. We're going to review action items from this meeting.
Hi, Chair Bradshaw. Yes. Let me get out my notes for the action items for today's meeting. Earlier today, when we discussed our operating procedures, there was a request to develop a documentation process for TAC members on how to fill out the forms or what forms are required and what that process is. So we will follow up and do that. And second, we will follow up with ODOT, specifically Scott Boardman, on the privacy data information, along with, I think, security. So we will follow up with ODOT and get the information to our TAC members. And I just wanted to see if there were any additional requests at this time that, we could follow up with.
Very good. I'll put it to the members if there's anything additional. And I believe we have all necessary votes are already completed. Is that correct, Francis? Just making sure today, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, seeing no hands up. That'll move us to public comment. Douglas?
Chair, not seeing any request for public comment.
Okay, with no public comment, that'll move us towards the adjournment of the meeting. Couple things I'd just like to again thank fellow members for a robust conversation, taking the role seriously. I'd also like to uplift and recognize our presenters today, Mr. Scott Boardman from ODOT and our friends Lauren Prohoda from Caltrans for the presentations today. And I'd also like to recognize and thank the members of the public who did attend and observed this very important conversation, which will be ongoing. That will conclude the meeting today. Our next meeting will be Friday, February 27th, 2026. Looking forward to seeing everybody and for your participation. And with that, I'll just wish everyone a good day and make it a great weekend. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.